box, Uncanny Stories, is a 1970 horror sci-fi weird fiction anthology by Richard Matheson. This is one of those books I found on a whim on Libby. It wasn't very long. I knew Richard Matheson's name despite having never read any of his works, to the best of my memory anyway. I ended up being very impressed with this collection overall. There are 11 short stories: Button Button, Girl of My Dreams, Dying Room Only, Flourish of Strumpets, No Such Thing as a Vampire, Pattern of Survival, Mute, Creeping Terror, Shockwave, Jazz Machine, and Clothes Make the Man. Rating each individual story on a scale of 1 to 5 and then averaging them together, my total for this book is 4.09. My favorites of the bunch were Button Button, No Such Thing as a Vampire, Mute, Creeping Terror, and Clothes Make the Man. It's worth mentioning, first and foremost, and I alluded to this in my intro, that not all of this is horror fiction. A chunk of these stories aren't scary, they're just weird, even funny or satirical. My absolute favorite of the collection, Creeping Terror, is written as a scholarly article and/or recounting of Los Angeles coming alive and basically taking over the entire United States. Orange trees start sprouting up in the Midwest, people suddenly start dressing in LA clothing and suddenly wanting drive-in movie theaters and cars. I should mention that this particular story was written in 1959 originally, so slight cultural difference from today. But the whole story was incredibly funny and I loved every second of it. Button Button was another favorite. Classic, eerie, monkey's paw type story where the main character is offered a box. If she presses the button inside, someone she doesn't know will die, but she gets $50,000, which, for context, in 1970, when the story was written, should be equivalent to, if the website I looked at rendered the number correctly, $400,000 today. A lot of Benjamins in that stack. Now, if this concept sounds familiar, it's because it was not only adapted into an episode of The Twilight Zone, which Richard Matheson apparently hated, probably because it deviates from the original story, but also a 2009 film with Cameron Diaz and James Marsden. Mute, one of my other favorites from the collection, was also adapted into a Twilight Zone episode. No Such Thing as a Vampire was a segment in a horror film called Dead of Night that came out in 1977, and Dying Room Only was adapted to TV film in 1973. Those are the ones I could find, but I was pretty surprised to find so many adaptations of Matheson's works. I guess I shouldn't be, since he was a prolific writer during what you could call the formation of modern horror fiction in the 20th century, but it was fascinating to start listening to Mute only to realize that I had faint memories of watching the Twilight Zone episode a while back. I'm struggling with what else to say about these stories. They're classic. Button Button, like I said before, is a be careful what you wish for story that's short, simple, and elegant. No Such Thing as a Vampire absolutely caught me off guard with its ending, which is something I sometimes struggle with when it comes to modern horror fiction. Creeping Terror was hilarious. God, Matheson died in 2013, and I just so badly wonder what sort of thing he would write if he could see modern social media culture. Mute was a brilliant concept that had a really nice message at the center of it, and Clothes Make the Man took a funny saying and brought it to an absurd conclusion that I loved. I can't say too much else without giving away major plot details. It's the struggle of trying to recap short stories rather than, a novel. But I definitely recommend this collection if you're interested in some solid classic horror, sci-fi, weird fiction. I think if you engage with a lot of modern media along those lines, you'll find that they ultimately took inspiration from stories like these ones. They're beautifully written, and now I badly want to go read more of Richard Matheson's stuff.